Meb, I should introduce you one more time then, and apologize for those technical difficulties, everybody. But I'm Varun Sriram, your host, and like I mentioned, thrilled to be joined by three-time Olympian, top marathoner in the United States for the last decade, Meb Keflezighi. So Meb, this time let's try it again. How are you today?
It's great to be here to share this evening with you guys, and I hope we can accomplish a lot through the question and answers and learn. I always believe every day is a learning experience, and hope I could share some of the wisdom that I have run through my training and career over the 20 some years.
So, Meb, I want to start off really by, talking about some of the aspects of your running career. You've had some very special moments in the state of Texas. And one of the memorable moments, many of the folks who are joining us tonight are here with Luke's Locker, the running store throughout Texas. So most of the folks you're speaking to tonight, that's where they're listening in from. And like I mentioned, Texas, we can see on the screen, been a special place for you, where you won the 2012 Olympic trials. What are some of your memories of that race in particular?
I've been very fond memory of being in Texas, not just in Houston, but in Dallas, San Antonio, Austin, and whatnot. And the trials was special more for me because I tried twice to make that team in the marathon, which in 2004 went pretty well. I was undertrained and got second to Alan Culpepper, but I was so happy to be on the team early on in February. And then 2008, as most of you know, that I was favored to win and was ranked number one, got second in New York and third in Boston. I was ready to win the trials and hopefully go get another medal. But as most of you know, I came out with a pelvic stress fracture. We'll elaborate on that a little more later. And I felt what happened in Houston 2012 was what was supposed to be 2008 trials for me. But there was a late gratification for me to be able to run a personal best and not just make the team after not making the team in 2008, but to win it and to become the oldest trial winner. And the crowd was phenomenal. They will be able to cheer me on, and it was special for me personally, running to overcome, and then also for my family, where my daughters are old enough to kind of realize what their daddy's doing. And Houston, Texas, Houston is also special because that's where during that race in 2010 was when my daughter was born. So a lot of great things. And so whenever I think about that race, is the birthday of my daughter, and also what I have done to overcome many things to not give up on my dreams of making the Olympic team, like what didn't happen in Beijing.
So, making the Olympic team, it's got to rank up there with things you've done in the state of Texas. But you were sharing with me before we got on this call some other pretty cool opportunities you had in Texas. What were those all about?
And Texas brings a lot of great memories. There's one bad memory that I'm going to tell. Let's start with the bad one. The heat in Texas does get to you. I was in 2000, I believe it was 2007. I won 4 NCAA titles, and in Dallas, Texas, they were given an award for the best athlete and also academics combination, and it's called the Carl Lewis Award. And then I got that award in June, and I was over there and went for about an hour run, and the wind was a little bit behind, and I was getting a little push from the wind. And then when I made the U-turn, probably 35 minutes, I'm gonna run faster at the end, and I just couldn't go anymore, and I had to stop. And I was ran from the hotel, and I was looking for the residential area and looked like if any of the water were available, water hose, because it was hot. It was really hot, and so a lot of my hats up to you guys who trained there and the heat, and it makes you tougher, and definitely have for me. Even though I stopped, it makes me appreciate the weather I train, but also rely on hydration and learning. And the other pleasant times that has been was this last year, 2014. I was the honorary captain for the Houston Rockets, which gave me great privilege for that, and they won the game. And also in 2003, when the USA National Cross Country were held in also in Houston, I was also the team captain for that. So I feel like I have a lot of connection with the people from Texas.
And Meb, I know you're a big basketball fan, a UCLA guy. We're in school. Won a lot of great players. We're at UCLA as well, so I'm sure that must have been quite a thrill. And so I wanted to kind of introduce Meb, and he does have share a connection with Texas, as he just outlined. Just a few things before we really get into a lot more with Meb. First of all, big thanks to all of you for joining us tonight and giving up some of your Wednesday night or Tuesday night, excuse me, and of course a huge thanks to you, Meb, for sharing your time with us tonight as well. For everyone who did sign up for this webinar, as you I'm sure are aware, you will be able to pick up a packet of UCAN at the Luke's Locker location that you selected when you registered for the webinar. Those packets will be available at Luke's starting on Monday, next Monday. You can go into the location you selected and pick them up. Just encountering some rough weather on the East Coast and in the Midwest over the next couple of days, so want to make sure that we allow for any delays in the mail. And I'm sure a lot of you guys have questions for Meb, so feel free to type your questions in the chat, and we'll spend about the next 15 to 20 minutes. Beyond just an athlete, Meb's really got an unbelievable story, so really want to spend the next 15 to 20 minutes allowing him to share his story, but then we'll certainly get to your questions. And I know a lot of you have already emailed specific questions regarding UCAN, so don't worry, we'll certainly get to that as well. But Meb, you've been at this marathon thing now for, I guess better part of a decade, a little bit longer than a decade, and still right there when it comes to every race, contending with the top of the field. How have you done it, basically? What do you do to keep yourself performing at this level over all these years?
Varun, I've been very fortunate to be healthy and to have the career that I had. It started all with a mile run. The mile run that I ever did was in seventh grade, and I did that to get an A, to get T-shirt and my picture in the window. And the coach basically gave a speech to everybody. Says, hey, if you run hard, put the effort, you're gonna get A or B. Well, my parents always want us to get that A or A. B wasn't even acceptable, and I just ran as hard as I can, and I ran a 5 minutes and 20 seconds in seventh grade. So that opened the eyes, and people used to say, he called the high school coach, and he said, hey, we have an Olympian here. I was like, well, I didn't know what the Olympics were because I just came to the United States in 1987. This was 1988, and really didn't realize what the Olympics were. But people said, hey, you're going to be an Olympian. I have no idea. And eventually people thought I was going to be a great marathoner and whatnot through my high school career and college because of my rhythm. But in 2002, it was the first marathon I did in New York, and it wasn't pleasant. I like the 5K, 10Ks a lot better, but eventually learned that when I did my first marathon, I said first and last, and I don't want to do this again. But things change, and you adapt, you learn as you go, and I've been fortunate enough to be build up my mileage slowly instead of just cramming it up all at once. And I've been, gradual improvement has worked for me. And, I've been fortunate enough to be able to have the career. It's not easy, but at the same time, do the small things that make the big difference, whether it means doing the stretching, doing the drills, doing the icing. It's not just about, the run that you do 2 hours or 2.5 hours or 3 hours, but how do you take care of yourself for the next 20 hours. And for me, and nutrition has been a big part, especially since I turned 35, and also the training, the small details that I do to keep me healthy. If I'm healthy, I could train, and if I could train, I could perform. And luckily, I'm still competitive, I believe, and I want to keep that going for a long time. But if we didn't have this opportunity to say thank you to Generation UCAN for allowing us to connect and hear my story, started, what a name. It started in 2009, right after I won, and in fact, 2009 is when I started UCAN, and the name itself is it all. We have to believe that we can be the best that we can be, and you have to believe that, winning New York is the new generation. There was a drop for the United States to not have winners and medalists, but hopefully I have proved that to be this is a new generation where you can do what you set your goal to be. And I feel both New York was my goal to win it, to get an Olympic silver medal was my goal, which I set in 2000, at the Olympic Stadium after becoming first Olympian. How can I make it extra special for the United States or for myself? And I said, you know what? I want to bring a medal. I want to put our flag on the podium, and I'm happy to say that I have done that, and finishing also fourth in London. So it's all about doing the best you can, and the rest will take care of itself. And keep surrounding yourself with good people.
So Meb, we're looking on the screen right now of one of the many highlights of your career, but winning the New York City Marathon in 2009, certainly just an incredible moment for you. And you talked. I think you recently, I think it was in 2012, celebrated. I believe it was was it your 25th year of being in the U.S. or your 25th year of being a U.S. citizen?
25 years in the U.S.
25 years in the U.S. All right, exactly. And so, I'd love for you to share with the folks kind of your journey and your story, where you grew up and how you and your family ended up here in the U.S.
Thanks, Varun. Our beginning was pretty humble and pretty stressful, to say the least. I was born in Eritrea, which I had a 30-year war for independence, which I was born in 1975 and started in 1960, so I was really born in the middle half of it. And what does we take for granted what independence does. For us, being there, it was difficult because you don't know what tomorrow brings. Whether you're old enough, if you are 12-year-old or older, they just come at night and surround the village and the soldiers, that is the Ethiopian soldiers, and take you to, if you're old enough to hold guns, you're ready to go to military and be a soldier. And so that was the environment I grew up. The only probably one little fun thing that we did was play soccer, and we didn't even have a soccer ball. It was more like barefoot on a rocky, sandy field that is no grass, just dirt, and we make like a socks or long sleeve arm, cut it, stuff it with plastic, and so it could bounce, and that's what I did. But I don't go to school right away, even though my parents do the best they can to get us from the village to the capital. But my dad has to walk 225 miles to save his life, so he could have the opportunity to to leave the war, because he was wanted by the soldiers, Ethiopian soldiers. So there's two choices: he's going to get prison or he's going to get killed. So my mom has to be the stronger, and my mom's dad, my grandpa, to allow him to go to that journey. But at the same time, there was hesitation: is he gonna ever look back to his family? Is he gonna make it? So those things were, the upbringing. But fortunately, even though he was gun pointed at one point, my dad made that journey of 225 miles in 7 days, which is about 30 miles a day. But bear in mind, it's not just to walk 30 miles. He didn't know where the next step is going to be, where his next lunch is going to come, where his next dinner is going to come, or where he's going to spend the night, just because he's walking through the wilderness. So if you know an area where you can imagine, just think, without the freeways, without the highways, without the rest areas, break areas, trying to chug 225 miles, and at the same time leaving behind a wife and 6 kids. And five were born, one was on the way. And the only commitment they had, my mom and dad, was that when the baby is born, they didn't have no way of telling if it's going to be a boy or girl, but they had to commit to each other. If it's a boy, call him the Emnet, if it's a girl, call her Amina, which means with trust that one day we will be saved and we will get connected. And we were separated for 5 years. After he made it for Sudan, he made it to Italy through his ex-girlfriend was living in Italy. He connected with her, and they both helped us. And also his boss. When my dad is a workaholic, he wants to do everything right. He wants to lift things, clean up, do the best way he know how to do it. And he did that, and he got connected really well with his boss, and basically said, eventually after 2-3 years getting to know him, he says, Dr. Brindisi, I need a favor. He said, I need to save my family. And in fact, before he said that, he helped him. He has to help him make him a registered resident in Italy, and he has to have him with paperwork. And eventually he says, I need a favor. Can I borrow some money to bring my family here? He said, how much do you need? He said, 10,000 lira, which is about $6,000 at the time. And he says, that's it per person? He says, no, for my 6 kids and my wife, and I have some money saved up, but He said that conversation happened on probably Friday or Saturday. He said, come Wednesday. He came on Wednesday, met with my dad, and he gave him an envelope of cash of 10,000 lira. And what Dr. Bendice said was, if he can save this many people with this, it's not going to be alone. It's a gift. So that was a gift that we would lend. That was a gift that was gifted by Dr. Bendice, who was my dad's boss, to save us. And if we didn't get the help from him, we wouldn't be where we are at. And we made it to Italy after 5 years of separation, but my dad has to go through a lot on his own, not seeing his kids, but praying so much that hopefully we'll make it. And my mom has to be the husband and wife and the house, be able to do a lot of the things, make sure everything was smooth in Eritrea. So that's the beginning of it. And obviously on October 21st, 1987, we landed to the United States after we tried to make a trip. Well, we tried to go to Canada. Before that, we got rejected. We tried to go to Sweden. We got rejected after 6 week a week of refugee camp in Sweden, and then they sent us back to Italy, and then eventually the Red Cross sponsored us to come to the United States, and my sister, half sister Ruth, was able us to say bring us to San Diego, and that's how we ended up in the United States.
So, Meb, a lot of this stuff is detailed in your book, Run to Overcome. And actually, for everybody who's joined us here tonight, we're going to be doing a raffle, and we'll announce the winner tomorrow. But you will win a copy of Meb's book, which, talks a lot about his journey and his family's journey. It's really a fantastic read. So we will have one lucky winner of that book. But, Meb, as you tell the story of your father recently, when people are running a race or running a marathon, it's such a mental game in addition to physical, and you have to draw on a lot of things. And there's a lot of things I'm sure that go through your mind. And most recently, when you ran the New York City Marathon last November, you drew on your dad's story when you were going through a particularly tough moment. How did you use him for inspiration?
Varun, whenever I go to a marathon, it's a challenge, and you know, I'm gonna give you that the 2013 New York. But before I do that, 2008 Olympic trials. We have to take life as it is and take advantage of it when we can, when we are able to do. In 2008, the trials, the reason I didn't go to Beijing is because I didn't make the team. But in that same race, my good friend Ryan Shea passed away, which it was I was sitting next to him on the bus to the starting line. So that kind of gives you perspective. And ever since, it's like, you know what? I have this able body, this opportunity. I want to maximize it. And you know, some cards that we dealt with, and others are we can choose and pick and things what we do. But when we choose a marathon to do, we chose it. We want to test our ultimate test of endurance, and we want to do that. And for me, during the New York City Marathon of 2013, in preparation for that, I want to win. I want to win the best because I compete, and when I compete, I run to win, getting the best out of myself. I still feel I'm very competitive. So in trying to do that, I tore my soleus in September, and bear in mind November is New York, first week of November, and my whole goal was to get to the starting line healthy. I made that happen, and then once I get the race, I knew the preparation was not ideal going into New York because lack of training ran out of time, and I felt my body was going to give up. I know it was going to give up at one point. I was hoping it would give up at mile 24 or 23 and tough it out the last 5K, but the competitive that I am, I take the lead and try to do as much as I can. About 14 and a half, 15 miles, they made a surge and kind of got separation, and then I dug deep and deep and deep. First Avenue trying to get in contact with them, and then all of a sudden, a mile 19.3. Bear in mind, I'm going under 5 minute pace for this whole time almost, maybe 5:05, couple of them, but at 19.3, I could not take the next step. And I have to say, wow, I can't take the next step, but then I have to draw back to the motivation of how my father had to walk 225 miles, not knowing where he's going to spend the night. But I know on mile 21, I'm going to get my fluid station. But I know I can't run, so I just start jogging, walking, and whatever I can. And that mile was for I know 10 minutes by any means not slow, but for me to go under 5 minutes, and then that mile was 9:53. It took me twice as long as I was going, but it would have been easy to just stop, get on the van. It was cold, chilly morning, and go. But that's not my best. That's not what my dad did. He did the best he can to save his life, and I did the best that I can to finish. I don't care if it took me 3 hours or it's going to take me 4 hours. I was going to have to debate not to the people not to let me in that van, but eventually I ran into across to a couple of runs that encouraged me to go. As they passed me, I tried, and about 3 miles to go, my custody encouraged me to keep going, and I said, "Well, I'll try," just like I done, and we just and ran for half a mile or so, and after that, we just said, "Hey, let's help each other get to that finish line," and we did, and it was a struggle, but marathon and running is all about encouragement and supporting each other, and I was happy to tell you that I finished hand in hand with Mike Cassidy, and he eventually told me, he's like, "Meb, I know you're having a tough day, but this was the best thing that happened in my running career." I'm like, "Wait a minute, you helped me get to the finish line," and I went to tears. And then eventually people asked me what happened that race, and I expressed what happened. And you know, I didn't do it for publicity. I didn't do it for whatever. I just said, let's help each other out. And we did that. And then he wrote a beautiful blog. Mike Cassidy's from Long Staten Island, and he wrote a beautiful blog what it was to run like with me. And I equally enjoyed it, and looking forward to the friendship that we have made over from that race running together. And you have to dig deep to finish because the Boston people didn't have it. The cancellation of New York 2012 was huge. So yeah, and my father not be able to walk to 125 miles was huge. So I have to dive deep in those moments to say, you know what, I am able to walk, so I'm going to finish, and that's what I did.
So, Meb, obviously, you can train your body. There's, you have your routine there. You put in the mileage. You do lots of exercises. But with everything that you were just talking about, how do you train your mind to be able to hit that extra level during a marathon? You talked earlier when you said the first time you ever ran a marathon and you hit the wall, you said no more. So that mental edge that you need to run a marathon obviously doesn't come naturally. How do you train yourself for it?
You know, uh, the marathon hurts no matter what way you look at it, no matter how conditioned you are. Otherwise, if it didn't hurt, I would have won all the marathons. But somebody has trained better than me, or potentially outsmarted me, or they were just had a better day, and or I had food poisoning, or I had injury, or whatnot. But I really believe I equally hurt as my fellow 20,000 plus marathoners. We do. It's just you train your body to be effective and efficient, and hopefully I start hurting on mile 22, 23 versus hurting mile 15 or mile 19, and then after that it's just toughen it out, and you have to dig deep to your roots. Why are you doing there? Because nobody obviously forced you to start that race. Maybe somebody doubt you that you could finish, but we have those people who doubt us to do things, and we have to prove them wrong. But regardless, it hurts and it will hurt. You just gotta be determined to get to that finish line, and do the best you can. Obviously you don't want to get injured. You don't want to sometimes we do finish all of us in the hospital or whatnot, or we can't even walk because that's, when you wear that USA jersey, I'm not just representing myself, but I'm representing everyone, and my supporters in the United States who gave me the opportunity. So, just keep pushing the envelope, and I train as much as I can. I really believe in the keys to marathon is preparation. If you prepare, you might hopefully you only hurt for 3 miles, but you will hurt eventually. If you're not hurting, then you haven't pushed hard enough yet.
So you talked about maybe how nutrition has changed once you hit 35, or even as you got older, and we'll get into that here in a moment. But how's your overall training changed? You're about 6 weeks away from Boston, and is there anything different you're doing now to make sure that you're at that level of fitness where you feel like you can compete? That's markedly different from, say, when you ran Boston, 7, 8 years ago?
For sure. I mean, nutrition is a key component to performance, and I could definitely say since I turned 35 in May, I'm going to be 39. So last 4 or 5 years, my metabolism has slowed down, and to keep me lean, I definitely have been relying on your generation UCAN when I do marathons and I'm traveling a lot and I'm not getting the proper nutrition that I need to eat in my greens and whatnot. But I definitely count on UCAN to help me be lean. And in fact, after I won New York, I was doing so many appearances in 2009, beginning of 2010. Jen Ryan, so when I was on a Mammoth Track Club, said, "Meb, how many miles you run? And you look really lean." And I was taking one UCAN protein while I was, a day while I was traveling, and it kind of helped me be lean. And yes, from 8 years ago, at 30, I can consume anything and everything, and I have a fighting weight that I call it. And then now I have to keep that. I have to be very careful of what I eat and when I eat and how frequent I eat. And when you run so many miles, like 100, 130 miles a week, you think you can eat anything and everything, but that's not the case at this stage of my career. And sad to say, but it is true.
When you're training for a marathon, at 39 compared to 30, when you look at your overall training plan, and I'm trying to maybe relate this in some way to the folks that are listening who may be training for their own half marathon or marathon and are finding that they have to tweak things, as they put more miles on their body and they too get older. Have you found that the training plan for you looks very different? Is the mileage lower? Are you adding other types of workouts instead of just putting all the miles on your legs, or do you feel like what you're doing to prepare is pretty similar in terms of the miles that you're putting in?
The right things come at the right time, and for me, I know this is UCAN, but I'm not just saying to say it, but UCAN has come through huge for me in terms of recovery. So my recovery, I rely on UCAN. The first thing that comes to my body is after long run, tempo, intervals, and semi-long run, at least 3 to 4 on UCAN to fuel me until I get home, and I have to have, usually I can have 3 meals, but now I have 2 meals with a shake of UCAN, and then maybe side of half a power bar or whatnot. But yeah, I mean, also I do a little bit more off season. I'm doing more of a cardiovascular with my elliptical. I train elliptical, so I do that quite a bit instead of. So I have to debate whether it's worth going for a 30-minute run, where I used to do that in the past, or that which is on your legs. So you're talking about 10 in the morning or 15 in the morning or maybe up to 20 in the morning. And then do you want to go that 4 or 5 miles in the afternoon, or do you want to go on elliptical, which is no impact, and go for about an hour and a half or 2 hours, even though my heart rate is not going to go up, but I'm still burning calories to keep my weight, and also I'm still been active, so my heart rate might be 100 instead of the 117, 120 when I'm running, but I'm there for a longer period. So the key right now is for me to stay healthy, because over the years of 24, 25 years now, I've been running for a long time, and it's deposited in the bank. And then if I could stay healthy and nurture it and bring it back, that would be huge.
I think one of the first times I spoke to you, you mentioned you said running isn't just a passion; it's a full-time job. What are kind of all the other things you're doing outside of just running and training to get you where you need to be? Like what does a typical day for Meb look like when you're right in the middle here in the meat of your training for a marathon?
It's my training or my daily schedule, it varies, and in fact, today has been since 8:30 and on the go, and people think it's just running, and I know I ran only 9 miles, but for me, physical therapy is important to try to be limber, try to be flexible. It's not just the run, but the drills, the stretching. I stretch about 3, 4 times a day. I did have to do. My hamstring is a little tight, so I have to go to do ultrasound, and then come back here. I had the Universal Sports crew here, and they were with me the whole time, and they follow me wherever I go. And now here I am doing a webinar. So it varies day to day, but at the same time, um, some things that I either do is spend as much as I can with my girls and my family and friends. But if they like to go out, I can't because of the nutrition. I don't know what they put in it, so it's kind of difficult. And but I work very closely with my foundation to maintain excellent balance through health, education, and fitness. And so it's been fun, long career and longevity wise, but I enjoy it. I get motivated from my fellow runners, not just the elite, but the people that are do 20,000 plus, and I know I got a lot of critics saying weekend warriors. The reason I say weekend warriors is people who not they don't just run the weekend, but they have to squeeze it in before work, after work, or during lunch. That's who I refer to when I say weekend warriors. But the race weekend is huge, and I get equally motivated by you guys because I see you, even though you didn't see me. Many of them, run, squeezing at run at lunchtime or before a run. I'm like, I have a flight to catch somebody at 5:30 or 6 a.m. But I thought I have to do for a living. But those people are just doing for fun and trying to live a healthy lifestyle. So with the Meb Foundation, I also try to be a good example to that. Like I said, it's health and education and fitness. And that's what I try to do. And so it's always busy. And then I have three daughters, 8, 6, and 4. They keep me busy, and my wife does a great job. Make sure I'm able to do the things that I need to do to be at the still competitive at the elite level.
So, Meb, the one of the things you get a chance to interact with a lot of a lot of runners at the various races you're at, and I think one thing that you always hear people comment, and that's always struck me is something you were just talking about. The appreciation you do have for those people that are just training, just training for a race, whether it's to get more fit or not doing it at the elite level, but doing it because it's something they love. This year at Boston, as we mentioned a few times, getting ready for Boston. What do you anticipate that whole atmosphere is going to be like for you, and for all the runners who are there after everything that went on last year?
Um, Thanks for the kind remark you said about my fellow runners. I love them dearly, really do, and I wish I could spend more time with anybody who comes in contact with me. I wish I could even have more contact with them, but with appearances, with competitions, with others, I can't. I wish I could, but I can't, and I hate to say no. Or if somebody says, "Hey, can I take one more picture?" Well, it becomes 10, 15, and one now. So I just tell them, follow me, and I'll take a picture outside. And that's a way that I like to interact with people. Do respect and treat others the way you want to be treated is what my parents taught me, and that's what I try to do with. And that's not how many books I sell, but how my experience with that person was. And to say that in Boston, 2014 is going to be huge. The atmosphere. I was there last year. It was a gorgeous day until the bomb exploded. It's people are earned to be in Boston, and this year been this for it's going to be special just because of what happened last year, and it's going to come. I think the team that is overcome, and hopefully we can overcome that and have a positive experience, including myself. But no matter what, the environment is going to be just tears. I think it's going to be tears of joy from beginning to the end because it's going to hit people at different time. I know it will hit me. It always does whenever the national anthem is played. You know, my I swell out with tears, and that's part of me. And when they sing that this year at the Boston, it's going to be huge. I mean, it's going to be. I can't even put in words. I drive energy every day just to wanted to give it my best. I hope I can stay healthy and get to the starting line. And if I could do that, I just want to get to that finish line. I hope I can win it. That's my goal. I hope also to finish in the podium. That's my second goal. And finish as high as I can. Goal number 3 and goal number 4 is to run a personal best. And if I could do that, and goal number 5 is I want in any case finish because not many people got a chance to do that last year, and you want to do it in honor for them.
You got very well said, and you've got another race coming up this weekend actually on Sunday, the New York City Half Marathon. um, Always, you generally when you're racing a major marathon, it seems you like to run a half marathon about 5 to 6 weeks out, if you can. And I think this is something that a lot of folks will be able to relate to. You mentioned to me that you're a little nervous. You still get nervous before you race?
I don't know. I don't think I get nervous. I get nervous with this one just because, like I said, my little bit hamstring was a little bit tight, and then you have to make a calculated decision because we talked about how big Boston's going to be in about 6 weeks or 5.5 weeks, and to have this race, even though my body is ready, when you have a little bit tightness, you kind of tempering a little bit with it, and that's what I'm nervous about a little bit, but I wanna go there in New York, give it a best shot, but have to also think long-sighted as Boston is a bigger picture. Boston Marathon, versus the New York City Half. So I'm very excited. I leave tomorrow and get a little bit treatment while I'm in New York and give it a shot. It's a great field. Mo Farah is running, and Geoffrey Mutai, who ran 2:05 in New York and 2:03 in Boston. So it's gonna be exciting, and I hope I could be a contender. But I'll have to also think about April 21st.
So, Meb, I want to open it up to a few questions now, and we've got a few already. Anybody else who has questions, feel free to ask Meb. We're gonna keep him here for about another 5 or 10 minutes to answer some questions for us. But Meb, James asks what your favorite marathon course is that you've run.
My favorite marathon course that I have run is New York. I mean, I've done it so many times. I don't enjoy when I run marathons. I don't enjoy them, but when you do it more than 2, 3 times, you get to see new areas and different times. So I have to say New York. But in terms for spectator friendly, London Olympics was spectacular in terms of watching on TV, just because the way they designed it, how green and whatnot was. But for me, it's been New York.
Jennifer wants to know what you consider the best accomplishment of your running career.
Thank you, Jennifer. That's almost saying, what's your favorite meal? You enjoy a lot of meals different times, and for me, winning the Olympic silver medal, that's probably a lot, I'll be honest. For me, breaking the American record to begin was huge. To win the Olympic silver medal was huge for our country, and that was my goal, and I accomplished that. But for personal gratification, personal satisfaction is when people write you off and you come back and finish strong. 2009 New York City Marathon. Personally, for me, that is because even though you finish second, third, and sixth, people wrote me off, and eventually, sometimes you even go without the shoe contract. And but down deep that you can be an Olympian by just that day you didn't hit out the ballpark, and that confident from your preparation that you can do it. And I knew I could win, could go to Beijing as an Olympian, but just that day didn't work. And in the U.S. is you get first, second, and third, you go to the Olympics or not. And to come back from that, and to come back from Ryan Shih's death, and to come back from pelvic fracture where I can't even walk, I was just crawling like a 10-month-old baby, and I have to go holding the wall, so step by step to move around the house or the hotel. It was huge. So those two, the Olympic silver for our country, and then winning the New York City Marathon for me personally.
So Alex has a question that actually we spoke about before we got on this, and I want to give a little bit of background. In And then I'll ask Alex's question. But in 2012, shortly after you'd won the trials, when we spoke, I had asked you a question, and you got asked this question by everybody as leading up to the 2012 Olympics, but everyone was asking you, Meb, is this your last Olympics? And a few different places you'd said, I think it's 99% my last Olympics, but I'm going to leave that 1% open. You never know what can happen. So, in that spirit, Alex says, are you going to push to compete in the 2016 Olympics?
Thanks for the question, Alex. Honestly, I thought 2012 would be probably my last Olympic, and I did tell you that 99.9 is, but there's always room for error. That error is coming pretty quickly. 2016 is not 2 years, more than 2 years away. In fact, less than 2 years away for the trials, which is going to be February 13, I believe, in LA. And I feel, when you ask me, on a good day, I feel like I have a shot on making the team. I really believe I don't have to win it. I just got to be top three. And the reason I want to be top three is anytime you get an opportunity to be an Olympian, to represent your country is huge. But also, my daughter Johanna is 4 years old. Should be 6. She doesn't remember London, even though she was in London. So I got my personal motivation to why I want to keep doing it. But I do see myself. I have qualified already with the time, with the Houston win this year, the half marathon, by running under sub 105, which I ran 101.23, which is my second fastest time ever. So those things are happening it would be a shame for me to say, you know what, I won't do it. But I plan to qualify and go to the trials and try to qualify, and I hope I could be first, second, or third, and get my ticket to Rio, and so my daughters and can have a great time and know that what their daddy does, and also anytime, like I say, anytime you have an opportunity to represent your country is huge, and I hope to do that, and I try to do that every day of my life.
Yeah, I think the Olympics, it wouldn't be the same without you, Meb. So we're all we're all pulling for you to get there. We just got a couple more. We had a whole several similar types of questions about UCAN. So I'll try to hit on some of the most common things that people were asking. So you mentioned using UCAN after your hard workouts and using it to keep you lean. So a few people have asked when you use UCAN before a run, what you've done in terms of how long before the run have you taken it, and which flavors have you used?
I have used a few times the before my run, pomegranate, and then also the plain before my run, and I usually do it about an hour, an hour before I go for a run, and it's a great way, I mean, to give you the energy and sustain, and I'm there for a total of 3 hours, hopefully 3 hours and 10 minutes from what I've taken in. That's sufficient enough for me. I did it in Boston in 2010, and I've done it in training, and hopefully, you know, it has helped me be with a sustained energy, and also, I love using it afterward. Just my body craves for it. Even though I do after the first thing I want to have after I finish a marathon or long run or interval or tempo is have that generation you can. I mean, nice, and I have my, it's simple. You just have your water, 10 ounce of water, and you pack it, and then you know what, you can go for 2 hours potentially or longer without looking for hungry. Whereas, I'm already hungry and looking for something while I'm doing my cool down or my last 2 3 miles of my end of my run. So by having that generation, you can it allows me to extend. I'm not in a rush. I can stretch, I can ice, I can do a lot of things. Whereas if I was somewhere else, was special. I'm unfortunate to have my wife here down to help me out with the cooking. But if I was doing by which I will do myself in the next couple of weeks, I think I am planning, if things go well, next week to go to Mammoth and go to altitude and stay there for about 4 weeks before Boston. But I'm definitely gonna even depend even more on generation you can, so I could do the stretching, take my time doing the things that I need to help me be the best I can.
We have Beth who asks, Meb, what is your sort of cheat food? The food that you really crave, but you try to limit how much of it you have when you train.
Thanks, Beth. I have a sweet tooth, so I cheated myself. I love having cheesecake. I love having sweet teas. I love having, but I can't even have those. And my daughter's birthday was 2 days ago, and I felt guilty. I had a little bite of brownie when we took brownie at her class, and I I have my wife was doing something at the house, and I had to go pick them up, and then there's leftover brownies. I'm like, oh, if I didn't see them, I wouldn't have it. I wouldn't have a problem. But I'm like, I gotta have one, and I got my milk and I had that. So, and after cheesecakes, and some people have sent me cheesecakes as to my house, in fact, from New York and whatnot, because they know that I love that. So, and like I said earlier, I just can't. I love to eat. I love have, it's part of my who I am, I guess, and you know, delicious food. But well, if it's out of my sight, I'm okay. But if it's my sight, you know what? I'll have one or two, and if it won't hurt me, I'll have a third one, and then I'm in trouble.
That's so it's sounds like you're not too different than most of us. I think a lot of people can relate to that. And Meb, I'll ask you the last one. This one comes from Laura, and thought this was an interesting question. She says, for most of us who are running a marathon, we're just focused on, ourselves and making sure that we finish and having the mental strength to go ourselves. But for you, when you run a marathon, how much are you focused on what you're doing versus looking around, seeing what other people are doing? How much of it is strategy versus what, just kind of mentally getting yourself through the race and making sure you're at the pace you want to be at?
That's an excellent question, Lauren. And for me, it's all strategies. When a gun goes off, 90% is mental, as for you guys should be, just because you've done the preparation. If you've done the 10% preparation, and then 10% mental, just because if you've done the distance, it shouldn't scare you. If you've done the homework, it shouldn't scare you. And for me, the same way. But the only difference between me and the rest of you guys is I can't run my own race because if somebody goes, if I'm trying to compete and trying to win the race, others dictate on how they're going to do it. If five people go, I have no choice but to go. If one person goes, then I stick around with the other group. But it is, you guys can, most of you guys can run your own race, meaning that, what, let me get my garment on and I'm going to go halfway the same way I want to go, the way I've been training, or slower and pick it up. But for me, if somebody is if I, in fact, like for example, the Athens Olympic Games, I saw the world record holder Paul Turgot, not been himself, but he was. I can see he was struggling a little bit, and I have no choice but to make a move. I'm pretty sure some people do the same thing. We set each other, and they see and they make a move. And at the same token, if I'm studying these people, I'm studying them, I'm studying them like an exam. I say, he looks strong. How is he breathing? Is he spitting too much? Or how's his form? Or they made a move. Is that their last move? Or they think they have another one? And so constantly changing. Constantly, it's like I think it's a chess game. People say sometimes, and you have to know what the moves are going to be, how you're going to make a move, or when you're going to make a count, and whatnot. And constantly thinking, and sometimes it works to my advantage, and sometimes, but doesn't. And some other times I made a foolish mistake. I went world record pace because the Kenyan in London in Boston 2006, they didn't have a they didn't have a rabbit, so they have it's a championship race. But the Kenyans brought their own rabbit, and they made a 207 go guy. So two guys went, and I'm like, the 207 guy, I know he's legit, so I can't let him go. And then I made a mistake. I ran 102.44 halfway, which is a world record pace, and I paid for it. But if I want to win, I badly want to win Boston, and I look back, I could have won it that year potentially, but no regrets because I gave it everything that I had. And he didn't win it. He got second, but the guy who came from behind who conserved his energy and won the race. But it's part of the game. Sometimes others are better than you, and they deserve to win if they train harder and smarter than you. So I feel, Lauren's question that, my mind changes constantly, not just to what I'm doing now, but to what's going to happen 5 miles or 4 miles, or that I have a better kick than them, or that have a stronger strength, or what their weaknesses, how they're doing. So it's all about tactics and analyzing who you're competing against. And also, I do my homework before the gun goes off to see what were their most frequent race, the last race, how it turned out, who's in shape and what's not. So starting now, I'm going to do my homework for Boston competitors, or what they're doing, how they're racing. If they're not racing, are they injured, or what would be the hesitation for that? So, we don't all like to show our cards, but sometimes if you're healthy, I love competing. I love to compete. By competing, you can be sharper, you can be stronger. In 2009, when I was in New York, I was competing a lot. And when I'm healthy, I like to do that. But sometimes, you can't because you are shaking a little bit because of injuries. You don't want to risk it. But you can study the person's profile on what they're good and what they're not good and what they have done in the past.
So that's it's an interesting look at the strategy of the marathon from your eyes. It sounds like it's a lot like scouting an opponent in a lot of the team sports. I thought it was fascinating. You say when you're running the race, you're studying everything from the way the guy's spitting and different things like that. So really a lot of little things that you look at to plan your race strategy.
Mm.
So Meb, finally, so I just want to thank you very much for joining us tonight. I am going to stick around for about another 10 minutes after we let Meb go, just to really quickly review how to use UCAN for any of you folks that haven't used it. You heard Meb share some of his thoughts on UCAN, and like I mentioned previously, all of you will be getting a sample of UCAN that you can pick up at Luke's Locker. So I just want to go through just a few basic slides to make sure that you guys know what to do with it. Meb, I do want to give you the chance, like I mentioned, we are raffling off one copy of your book, but for the people that are here tonight, many of them may be interested in checking out your book if they don't win it. So maybe in your own words, what is Run to Overcome, and if people are interested, what's the best way for them to get it?
Run to Overcome is what humble began from Eritrea of my dad's journey and to what has come to be just a blessing to come to the United States. And you might know about me, but all my brothers and siblings have gone to college and graduated college and done something wonderful to be positive contributors to society. And the journey in itself is to make us appreciate life, what we have, and this time, and how can we help others? How can we overcome our obstacles we have come in the past, that we are overcoming now, and that we will encounter in the future. So it gives you a lot of tips about just life and also about running, and you know from humble beginning of Eritrea to the American dream. And many people classify it as the true American dream story, because you might know about your great grandparents immigrating from someplace to the U.S., but for me, I've been fortunate enough to live in the third world country where the main transportation for me was walking or wagon to come to the United States. Through my hard work or through my what I have accomplished, to fly first class or to have a driver drive me to LA. And it's like I was always curious when I came to the United States, who's in that car or whatnot. But this curiosity has been answered. Your hard work does pay off, and that's why the United States provides the opportunity to be the best that you can be. And that's what Run to Overcome is all about. You have this opportunity, makes you take advantage of it, and also be grateful that you have this, because not everybody has it.
And people can get the book on your. Is it available on your website, or there's a special
Yeah, you
website
can
for?
go to you can get it on Amazon, or you can come to Tinsdale, which is the publisher, or runtoovercome.com. Also, we have it there, and yeah, and if you guys hopefully not huge, but if you guys want to do it personalized, I can also, through my website, I can also request, you guys can request it, and then I could personalize it for you to what you have accomplished or what your goals, what it is, and I can, mail it to you guys. So there's different ways of getting hold of the book. And for some of you that don't read, I have it available in audio or also in Kindle.
Fantastic. Well, it's like I mentioned, it's a great story. So Meb, really appreciate you taking the time. It's always fun chatting running and chatting a bunch of things with you. So you'll be able to catch Meb this weekend running the New York City Half Marathon. If any of you plan to be out here for that, he will be competing at Boston. So follow Meb there. And actually, we're excited. UCAN will be the official nutrition for the inaugural All American Marathon, which is being put on by Fort Bragg, the military installation in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and that race is May 4th. UCAN will be serving our nutrition on the course, both our fuel and a new electrolyte drink that we're coming out with. Meb will be there at the official start of the race and at the pre-race dinner the night before. So really encourage you to check out that race. Again, it's called the All American Marathon, and we'd love to see you out there, and it'd be a great chance to meet Meb. So, like I mentioned, I'll be sticking around for a couple more minutes, but Meb, really thank you so much, and look forward to seeing you in New York City.
My pleasure, Varun. Thank you for the opportunity. I want to wish everybody a healthy 2014, and go for your dreams and do the best you can. I always say run to win doesn't always mean we get in first place, but we each have our own goals. As long as we accomplish them, we're all winners. And whether it's to finish a marathon or half marathon or 10K, go out there and get it done. And sometimes it might seem challenging and you don't want to get out of the door, but once you get out of the door, you end up running more than you anticipated. So I want to wish you guys all the best, and thank you for supporting me over the years, and wish you much success.
Thanks, Meb.
Thank you.
So let's just quickly transition into UCAN a little bit for those of you. Some of you, I'm sure, have used it. Some of you aren't too familiar with it. So really quick, I just want to tell you the background of Generation UCAN. What's unique about the product is our carbohydrate, which was originally created for Jonah, who you're looking at on the screen. Jonah is the son of our founder, and had a very rare blood sugar disease. So the way we all sleep at night, our liver converts stored carbohydrates into glucose and feeds us energy, keeps our blood sugar stable throughout the night. Now, kids like Jonah, they were unable to, they lacked an enzyme in their liver to break down carbohydrates and convert them into glucose to give them energy. So Previously, what was happening is they had to be fed every 2 hours around the clock, day and night, to keep their energy levels, to keep their blood sugar up, and to prevent having hypoglycemia and having seizures from dangerously low blood sugar. Now, this was very taxing on Jonah's family and parents of these kids with this disease. So, Jonah's family, starting in 2000, they were very aggressive. They were looking for funding and researching what they called the world's best carbohydrate, which was a carbohydrate that would break down very slowly and give Jonah little bits of energy over time so he could have that steady blood sugar. And they could give it to him before he slept at night so he could at least sleep peacefully for 8 hours at night. So for 8 years, the top carbohydrate researchers in the world, they were looking at rices, tapioca, barley, wheat, any carbohydrate source, you name it. They were looking at it all. And what they were looking for was something, like I mentioned, that would keep blood sugar stable, keep energy stable for a very long period of time. Eventually, what they found when I mentioned Jonah was being fed every 2 hours around the clock, what these kids were being given was just regular cornstarch, ground up corn that you can buy at the grocery store. What the scientists found was that if you take this regular non-GMO, non-genetically modified cornstarch and put it through a very specific cooking process with just heat and water, it slowed the breakdown of the carbohydrate and allowed it to give Jonah that very steady energy at the rate he needed it. So really, that's where UCAN came about. This non-GMO corn, the cooking process is what was patented by UCAN, and eventually we were told by sports dietitians that keeping blood sugar stable and giving you this little bits of energy over time was really ideal for both elite athletes and just the everyday athlete who's focused on fitness and doesn't want the sugar spikes that come with a lot of the traditional sports nutrition. So if we're to look at really look at the graph on the screen, this represents, the blue line represents maltodextrin, which is what you find in a lot of the newer sports nutrition products, a lot of the gels and the bars and the gummies. They have maltodextrin as their carbohydrate source. Now, this is also this blue line is also representative of what's happening with your blood sugar when you have typical runner foods, as I like to call them, bagels, cereal, energy bars, the traditional carbohydrates that runners will often consume. And as you can see with on the blue line, what's happening is blood sugar goes way up. You get that spike in energy. And then 30 to 40 minutes later, blood sugar starts to drop significantly. Now, when blood sugar drops, that's when you need to refuel. That's when you start to feel fatigue and you feel hunger. And really, you can kind of think of this as there's a reason they tell you to take a gel every 30 minutes. It's because you need something to raise your blood sugar back up. The red line is our carbohydrate. We call it super starch, but it's what's unique about UCAN. And if you look at the red line, first of all, there's no spike, and then the decline is very gradual. If you look at the x-axis, 2 hours later, you're still right around baseline, meaning your blood sugar level is still right around where it started. What that really means, you can best equate steady blood sugar to steady in energy. So when blood sugar is nice and stable, you're not going to feel that need to consume calories. You're not going to feel those energy swings. So that's really the idea with UCAN. What it offers the runner is just that consistent, steady energy without the highs and lows. And when you don't have that crash, you don't need to refuel as frequently throughout your run. So a lot of people have really liked using UCAN because they can drink it. It's a powder that you mix with water. They can drink it 30 minutes before any type of workout, and as long as it's under 2 hours, they don't need to worry about fueling during that workout. What's another extremely key aspect, though, of this whole high and low that relates to kind of the person that's running, whether you're a marathon or even a half marathon or 5K or 10K, or if you're that person who's using running as a tool to get in shape and to improve body composition, to get fit, really what's going on is when you spike your blood sugar, whether it's like I mentioned, with a bagel, with a banana, with a sugary sports nutrition product, when you spike blood sugar, the body says, I have all this sugar in my blood, burn that sugar first, then burn fat. With UCAN, because we keep your blood sugar very stable, we put you in that ideal state to burn fat during your run. So part of the reason you need less calories during your run when you're fueling with UCAN is because it's keeping you very steady. But the other reason is you're tapping into and burning fat for fuel. So, people have found that there's a great benefit in burning fat for fuel for performance because, even somebody like Meb, 3 to 4% body fat, has 14 to 16,000 calories of stored fat that he can use for fuel. So we all have plenty of fat available for fuel. It's much more abundant than carbohydrates. So, when you're able to burn fat for fuel and get a steady release of carbohydrate, you're going to feel just that consistent energy throughout, and you're not going to deplete your carbohydrate stores. And, depleting carbohydrate stores can often cause you to bonk. It can cause that kind of that brain fog that you may experience. When you're exercising. A lot of that is tied into the depletion of your stored carbohydrates. So that's a big thing that UCAN will offer. It's also very easy on the stomach. It's very gentle, passes through the stomach rapidly. So a lot of people who don't really like to eat in the morning or eat before they exercise, they really like to have UCAN, and you want to think of it as your pre-workout snack. So let's talk about the different product offerings. So the sports drink mix with UCAN has the super starch, which is the unique carbohydrate, and it has electrolytes in it as well. It comes in 3 different flavors. We just came out actually with our newest flavor, which is tropical orange. Right now, it's only available in tubs, but it should be available in packets in the beginning of April. Um, so the sports drink mix, it's about 120 calories per packet. You want to drink it, mix a packet with 8 to 12 ounces of cold water and drink it 30 minutes before your run. For anything under 2 hours, that one packet taken before your run should be good. Should give you that steady, even energy that you need. You can certainly hydrate. If you're in the Texas heat, you can supplement with some sugar-free electrolytes, but you really don't need any additional fuel. Now, when you go over 30 minutes, or excuse me, when you go over 2 hours, what a lot of folks will do is they'll supplement with an additional packet of UCAN every 90 minutes. And when you're consuming UCAN during a run and you're consuming it, in those 90-minute intervals, what you want to remember is that it's a fuel source. It's not hydration. So anytime you're drinking UCAN, the intention of it is to get that serving of UCAN in your system relatively quickly, over a 5 to 10 minute span rather than sipping on it slowly. Because the way the product works is when you consume it, it passes through the stomach rapidly, and then it breaks down very steadily into your bloodstream. So it's not like a gel or a sugar-based fuel where you're going to drink it and boom, it's going to hit you right away. It's remember we talked about that slow burning aspect of UCAN. So you want to just make sure that you're consuming it relatively quickly, and also you're consuming it before you need it. So what I mean by that is if you find that one packet lasts you for 2 hours, then when you're going longer than 2 hours, the reason you're taking UCAN every 90 minutes is to give it some time to kick in. So certainly the sports drink mix can be used pre-workout. It can be used during your long runs as well. A lot of people are using it, 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, just as instead of that third cup of coffee or a soda or an iced tea, something filled with a lot of sugar. They're just using it to keep their blood sugar and energy stable in the middle of the workday. And you could certainly add it to, add some yogurt and some fruit and some protein and make it into a shake. The protein enhanced mix, which is what all of you will be getting actually, our newest flavor, our vanilla cream UCAN with protein. The protein mix also has the super starch, so it'll also give you energy. It also has the same electrolyte content, and it's got 13 grams of added protein. So the protein you can it's up to you. You could certainly use it like Meb does, which is post workout, after a tough workout. So the protein's designed to help the muscles recover. The carbohydrate again will keep you stable. It'll help you avoid that ravenous post workout hunger. A lot of people may have a tough workout, but then negate it by just eating everything in sight. So the UCAN with protein will help really help tide you over until you can get a proper meal in you. It'll also compared to, let's look at something like chocolate milk, which a lot of people are probably consuming for recovery. In terms of the protein content, it'll certainly help the muscles recover. But if you're really looking for something to stimulate fat burn after a workout, the 20 to 25 grams of sugar in chocolate milk is is, like we talked about before, it's going to spike your blood sugar and put your body in that sugar burning mode instead of fat burning mode. So one of the easiest ways we found people really have gotten lean when they're, in marathon training or half marathon training is by fueling with UCAN after their workouts and really allowing for that continued fat burning effect instead of, immediately dumping rice, pasta, bread, or some type of sugary carb protein drink into their system. The protein UCAN can definitely be used pre-workout as well. It'll still give you that steady energy. Really, the benefit of using the UCAN with protein pre-workout is if you haven't eaten in some time, the protein will help curb the hunger in the stomach. If you're doing a really long run and you tend to get hungry during your long runs, you might try using the UCAN with protein. Again, the protein is designed just to help settle the stomach and not give you that same rumbling feeling in your stomach. And protein UCAN again works really good. Popular recipe is 8 ounces of almond milk, a packet of the UCAN with protein, some nut butter, whether it's cashew butter, almond butter, peanut butter, and a third of a banana. Really works really well. That's probably my breakfast, five days a week. And again, using UCAN as the carbohydrate portion of a breakfast shake will really give you that steady energy even in the morning as you're entering the workday, and you don't want to be prone to those highs and lows in blood sugar even during the workday, even outside of exercise. So that's the way to think about using it. I guess the final thing we'll talk about is just the way you want to think of UCAN. A lot of people look at the caloric content and say, how am I replacing? If you look at this chart, that's actually should say 120 calories instead of 100, but no, you get the picture. For a 2-hour run, people may have a bar and then have a bottle and a half of whatever sports drink, 350 calories to get through their run. They may have 4 gels or 3 or 4 gels, 300 to 400 calories to get through the run. So what people are always wondering is, how am I replacing those calories with 130 calories of UCAN, 120 calories of UCAN, and not feeling a lull in energy? And I think the quote really illustrates it at best. This is from Dr. Kathy Eckel, who researches the human metabolism at Yale University, and she says, it's really the ability to maintain blood sugar that sustains energy levels. From a fitness standpoint, UCAN is huge because it does that without putting a lot of calories on board. It's really beneficial because you can make every calorie count. So, if you remember when we were talking about all of us having plenty of fat to tap into for fuel, you don't need so many external calories to fuel your workout. The reason you're taking in so many calories with traditional fuels is because you're trying to stabilize your blood sugar, which, as Kathy points to, is really what is the key to sustaining energy. But if your blood sugar is already stable, you don't need to take in those calories throughout your run just to stabilize it. So that's really, I think, one of the important ways to look at and to think about UCAN when it comes to a caloric perspective. So with that, I would say if you haven't tried UCAN yet, this will be a great opportunity for you to get a sample pack at Luke's. The best way to try it is really 30 to 45 minutes before a workout, anything an hour plus. I really like to use it even if I'm doing 30 to 45 minutes of say intervals on the treadmill or something intense because like I talked about, because the product keeps your blood sugar stable for so long, even when you're done with a tough workout, if it's only 30 or 45 minutes, that UCAN effect will still stay with you. So you'll be able to go home, shower, and then cook yourself a proper meal. You won't be home and ravenous because you have low blood sugar. But, yeah, definitely try it 30 minutes before an hour workout, or, you could try it certainly after a tough workout and just notice, that steadiness that you feel in the aftermath of a tough workout. A lot of people previously would say they go for their long run and come home and be completely wiped out the rest of the day. And they find that when they're using UCAN and keeping their blood sugar stable, that they're able to, carry on with their day, play with their kids, do what they need to do around the house. So it's really that feeling of steadiness. It's sometimes you don't even realize how important or how empowering it is until you actually feel it, and that's what I encourage you all to do. Um, I'm happy to answer, any questions as you guys continue to train with UCAN. You'll have my email, so feel free to reach out to me. You've got great resources in the staff at Luke's Locker, many of them who use the product themselves. So, they're a great reference point. But we're always happy at UCAN to help you, chat with you on the phone, chat with you via email, and really help you fine tune using the product to your individual needs. So I really want to thank all of you for joining us tonight. Big thanks to everyone who participated with their questions. And uh, yeah, I really encourage you to check out the All American Marathon. Like I mentioned, we're really excited to be involved with it. And, if any of you are looking for a spring marathon or even a half marathon or a 5K, it'll be a fantastic weekend and a great chance to meet Meb in person. I think, every time I speak to him, I really enjoy hearing his story. So I hope all of you got the same out of it as well. With that, we will chat with you soon, and thanks for joining us tonight. Take care, everybody.